In this series of 3 videos, we're looking at ways of improving work on the floor. How to deal with problem solving as a habit. Changes in the workplace may appear to occur as a natural process, but in fact, the manager's influence on the general atmosphere and also on the improvement process is very strong, as we have shown. In Volume 2, we demonstrated techniques which could set the energizing process in action. And in Volume 3, we'd like to look at ways of sustaining the momentum. So how exactly can you make sure your team remains enthusiastic about workplace improvements? We'd like to examine 3 main areas in Volume 3. 1. Encouraging group discussion. 2. Request and response sessions. And finally, some do's and don'ts for the chairman of meetings. Part 1. Encouraging opinions.
Today we combined a feedback meeting with a general discussion meeting. Unfortunately, no opinions emerged. The staff couldn't speak frankly in front of you two, but they're aware now of the situation. So I suggested forming small diagnostic groups. It's another way of trying to get a response and may work with your section. It's easier to speak up in small meetings.
But do you think they'll really work?
Yes, they usually do. Think of it like this. The workers are like doctors. They have to examine the patient to find out what's wrong and decide what treatment is needed. The good thing is that, although careful preparation is needed, they're easy to set up. And in fact, they involve much less work than a questionnaire does.
You remember that Mr. Suzuki had a lot of trouble digging out responses after presenting data feedback. Well, let's have a look at the 3 main steps involved in organizing diagnostic meetings. Step 1. The people in charge must think carefully about the purpose and organization of the meetings. Step 2. A preliminary meeting is needed to discuss details with team representatives. These 2 steps represent the preparation stage. Step 3. All the problems must be clarified and classified, and decisions made about how to proceed with improvements. This can be regarded as the implementation stage. Now let's see how the meetings themselves should be conducted and what points you have to watch out for. Large discussion meetings. This is the first type of diagnostic meeting where everyone gets together to present opinions freely. The chairman must first explain carefully the exact purpose of these meetings, particular topics, and the schedule. The simplest procedure is for anyone wanting to speak to raise their hand, and for someone else to summarize all opinions expressed on the board. The biggest merit of this kind of meeting is that everyone can hear everybody else's opinions at the same time. The vital point for success is that the general atmosphere is open and relaxed and encourages frankness. The second type of diagnostic meeting is a combination of small discussion groups and large discussion meetings. This tends to be the most effective method when large numbers of people are involved or when many of the participants are hesitant to speak. Following the chairman's explanation, participants are divided into small discussion groups of between about 5 and 8 people, which have been arranged in advance. Each group discusses a particular theme, a summary is prepared, and everyone moves back to the general meeting, either on the same day or at a later date. Group representatives report on their group's findings, and the meeting is thrown open for general discussion. There are 2 particular merits of this method. Detailed discussion is possible, even with large numbers of people, and the opinions of hesitant members can be included. It also tends to heighten the general degree of participation. Points to be careful about are very much the same as for large discussion meetings. Criticism of opinion should be avoided, complaints should be welcome without argument, and in general the leader's role is to be a listener. And here are a few further hints. One, arrange groups carefully to ensure effective discussion, especially where feelings of conflict or distrust exist amongst the members. 2, keep a careful check on the progress of discussions. Make sure they are sticking to the main purpose and give advice as necessary. 3, give advice on the most effective style of presentation of the summary of each meeting. One more simple technique can be very effective when there is so much hesitancy, distrust or conflict between members of the staff that even the second type won't work well. This is known as a card meeting. Everyone is given a small card, for example 3 by 5, and asked to write on it any particular problem point that seems important to them. The cards are then collected and the results announced to everybody. This type of diagnostic meeting has several merits. The first is that it can pick up opinions from those who are still really hesitant to speak. Another point is that feelings of distrust will not affect the giving of opinions. And finally, the cards are very easy to sort out. Now a few hints on the card method. 1. Encourage everyone to write their opinions in very concrete terms. 2. Anonymity is no problem. If necessary, you can ask someone to rewrite cards and then throw away the originals, so that nobody will recognize the handwriting. 3. In cases where certain members cannot write very well, it is possible to print out the main problems on the card in advance and ask members to choose one. Encouraging group discussion summary. Choose the most suitable pattern of diagnostic meetings. Diagnostic meetings summary. Large discussion meetings, combination of small groups and large discussion meetings, card meetings. Part 2. Request and response sessions.
Besides setting up these regular discussion meetings, there is in fact another technique for sustaining momentum you might want to try.
Oh, what's that?
It's what we call request and response sessions.
Oh? What does that mean?
Basically, it's a way to improve general relationships by everyone making requests to the other members of the team. Then individuals have to decide which requests they can realistically respond to and announce their intentions.
Let's now have a look at what Mr. Takei was talking about when he suggested holding request and response sessions. The first step in arranging a request and response session is to decide on the most important problems or issues that seem to be shared by everyone based on your questionnaire data feedback and discussion meetings. Then, as a way of searching for solutions to the problems, everyone fills in cards, which state clear requests to all the other members of the team, one request to each person. Then the cards are exchanged, and each person sorts out his or her requests from everybody else. The requests should be divided into those which are impossible to respond to, or which the person doesn't want to respond to, and those on which a promise of action can be made. The final step is for everyone to announce what action they intend to take, based on the requests made of them. The manager should present his or her intentions first, and then everyone else should say something. Here again are the main steps for implementing request and response sessions. 1. Deciding important problems. 2. Filling in request cards. 3. Sorting out cards. And 4. Announcing intentions. Part 3. Meetings. Do's and don'ts. The secret of a successful meeting is the way the chairman handles it. His attitude, his preparation, and the way he speaks and listens during the meeting all affect the response he gets from those present. He alone can energize a meeting or reduce its effectiveness completely. In this final section, we're going to show some different types of managers chairing meetings in various imaginary departments and point out what they do well or what they do badly. You might like to think carefully about the atmosphere of these meetings and see if you recognize yourself or your own methods, or perhaps those of people you work with in these scenes. Case 1. A sales department meeting.
Looking at these answers, everyone thinks our section is pretty gloomy and depressing.
That's right. The atmosphere doesn't encourage opinion very much, does it?
I agree. But then, although you always seem very busy, couldn't you spare more time for listening to everyone's opinions?
Well, I think we spend too much time talking already. We're always talking. I mean, we're having this meeting now, aren't we?
Well, yes, I suppose so. But what always happens is you kind of block all our opinions. Couldn't you give us more chance?
What do you mean by that? You're always complaining, always negative. Why can't you come up with some constructive ideas? If everyone thinks the section is gloomy, where are all your brilliant ideas? It's up to you to brighten things up, you know?
Case 2. A sales planning department meeting.
I think it'd be better if there was more cooperation.
Cooperation. Yes, I agree. But to get that, we need better communication.
I'm still rather new here, so I'm a bit hesitant to talk with the bosses. It's difficult.
No, you gotta say what you think.
We've gone a bit off the point, haven't we? Today's topic is how to improve the sales situation. Human relations has nothing to do with it. I want some opinions about sales promotion and market development.
But cooperation is surely vital for increasing sales, isn't it?
You're still saying the same thing. Cooperation is important, but it's not today's theme. Let's have some sales ideas. Sales promotion. Let's have some ideas on that.
Case 3. A design department meeting.
It's difficult to say this, but I think we should maybe choose some different problems to discuss today from the usual kind of things. Normally, we only talk about technical stuff.
Well, that's not difficult. Say what you think.
Well, I've been thinking for a while that the atmosphere in our department is cooler and less friendly than it could be.
Oh, well, I think the reason is this. The design department is special. Everyone takes a pride in their job. There's often disagreement about technical points, and of course everyone has their own opinions, so compromise is not easy. That gives the impression of a cool atmosphere. It's no big deal. It's quite natural. Right, let's have some real problems.
All right. I'll present a problem. The other day, the compressor arrived from MT. It's a bit noisy and vibrates too much. Why don't we talk about that problem then?
Actually, I was thinking about that as well. I've heard similar complaints from other users.
Yes, we could talk about that.
Right, the compressor. That's a real problem. What do you think? Everyone agree? Well, what are your opinions on that? The compressor problem.
These three managers definitely shouldn't be used as role models. Things wrong with their technique as a chairman include poor preparation, bad reactions, and careless remarks, and the meetings suffer as a result. Let's take a look in detail at each type. The first type thinks he's always right, and the workers are responsible for all the problems, but never him. This we call the defensive type. This type uses phrases such as these in meetings.
That's your problem. Why are you putting the blame on me, not yourselves? What do you think you're doing, eh? That may be so, but it's no big deal. Let's get back on track, shall we? I can't do anything about that. That's outside my responsibility. Of course, I may have some problems, but today we're here to discuss your individual problems. As for myself, I'm doing all I can.
This type is always putting pressure on others and avoiding the truth about himself. The result is to discourage everyone. The next type thinks about workplace problems in a very simple way and cannot see the relationship between sales problems and human relations. We call this the inflexible type. This type uses phrases such as these.
But that's not today's theme. Just a minute. Your opinion is off today's topic. Save it for later, will you? Can't you come up with more useful ideas? Too much talking. What's the point?
Notice how these phrases all simply pull the discussion back to the manager's own opinions. The third type can only perceive technical problems and has no idea about the way communication, human relations, and the general work environment can affect work achievements. We call this the hardware type. This type uses the following phrases in meetings.
There's a lack of communication. I don't think it's a big problem. The thing that I think we really should be concentrating on in these meetings is trying to upgrade technical standards. All I want to hear from you is constructive opinions. Let's get back to hard data. let's have some suggestions for more radical reforms.
If team members think their opinions will not be considered in depth, then all they will present is superficial ideas. As a result, managers tend to suspect workplace meetings. It's a vicious circle. It should be quite clear that these three types really don't understand the process of energizing a workplace properly. Finally, let's briefly look at a more ideal way of doing things, the understanding type.
What you want to say is, there's a lack of communication between bosses and workers, right? Well, on that point, what does everybody else think? Yes, I think I was wrong. That upsets me. But I'll give it some thought. Good idea. And how else can we strengthen cooperation in the group? You think that we should change the present setup, right? Concerning that, I think that really you're onto a good thing.
All these phrases show that the boss cares about his team's opinions and that he wants them all to help with solving problems. The result is that more opinions will be voiced and the problems will be clarified. Given the right atmosphere, everyone feels encouraged to contribute freely. This is the real way to encourage teamwork. Let's check some important points for sustaining momentum. There are many phrases to avoid in meetings, and three bad types of attitude: the defensive type, the inflexible type, and the hardware type. The ideal chairman for a meeting is the understanding type. So, in conclusion, what are the ideal conditions for really proceeding smoothly and effectively with energizing the workplace? Let's take a look at 6 important checkpoints. 1. Everyone should be working enthusiastically to achieve the goals set up through careful planning. 2. There should be effective use of suitable work procedures and suitable staff for each job. 3. There should be real mutual trust and an atmosphere that encourages frank communication. 4. Every member of the team should be aware of the importance of interdependence and cooperation, and also changes in the environment outside the workplace. 5. Conflicts both inside the team and between teams should be regarded as problems that can be resolved with a positive attitude. 6. All members of the team should accept all kinds of information and feedback and be willing to learn from each other's experience. The role of a manager is vital in encouraging effective teamwork and building up an atmosphere that leads to real improvements in the workplace. Of course, it's not as easy as it looks. It involves sharing ideas, encouraging opinions, listening patiently, giving advice where necessary, and developing proper relations with everyone involved. And improvements don't take place overnight either. But we hope we've provided you with some useful hints as to how to energize your own workplace and really get your team working as a team. Energizing the workplace can be a long process, and not everyone will immediately grasp what you are trying to achieve. But just like Mr. Suzuki and Mr. Takei, keep at it, even if you meet with occasional failures. And our final advice is, don't go it alone. Get the whole team in on the act. And good luck.